next show? Fiber?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
All right, let's see here.
This is reconnected.
That's the reconnected. Okay, we're back. We're maybe live. Are we back?
Live but unstable.
Yeah, we're back. We're getting new. We lost all our viewers. We lost our viewers.
Oh, it had to restart.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do 2 shows on there.
2 shows.
All right, let's see if everyone comes back. It's the unfortunate part of this.
Yeah,
It doesn't happen. It hasn't happened in a while. So
it hasn't happened in a while.
Give everyone just a second to get back.
Is it? It's still going though, right? Or
yeah, we're coming
starting
back up.
All right, we're back. Back and unstable. It's like, okay.
Give everyone just a second to get back. We're getting into the story. So
Let me see. Okay. Should we start?
give them just a second. We're gonna take a stretch break here because it says it's still says it's unstable down there. Okay, if you're back, what happened is the typical thing. We're getting fiber here, by the way. We're gonna try to have this thing not be a thing in the future. So thanks for coming back with us. If you're back,
Yeah. Appreciate that.
back in action. All right, so we were just
Okay.
I think we cut off where we said the skull has some power.
Right. The skull has power. The grandfather knew that there was something big with the skull, and he wanted to study it. Part of the way that he could fund himself studying it is he realized that he could create beer with it somehow, and created this really amazing beer that everyone loves. Sort of like, yeah. So he knew that it was powerful and needed to be protected, but didn't really know how to harness the energy, right? He kind of knew how to do this one thing with it. And he liked beer, wanted to open a tavern, was just like, okay, we'll do it. Okay. So throughout this story, what do we want to tell? Roby learns the truth about his grandfather and Skullbob and what they are, what they're doing. He finds like some more adventure than sort of his life had before, which I feel like is maybe sort of confined to the bar, trying to figure out what he wants to do with his life. I'm sort of saying like late 20s, maybe, as Roby's age. And then, had no, I like this idea of him having like no great male role models in his life. Right. And so there's going to be this alien archaeologist character that we have that is sort of going to, I would think, throughout the story kind of endear himself to Roby, right? And because he's helping him and he's being encouraging, and they're sort of buddy copping their way through this adventure. And then, he betrays him at the end. That was kind of the idea, that he would build that up, and he needed that. Roby needs that kind of father figure that helps him. And then he gets screwed over by him at the end. Okay. So the Skullbobs that's on display, exactly. The Skullbobs that's on display in the tavern, we realize is not real at all. Like, that is just a complete fabrication for the tourists. The real Skullbobs is like in some amazing, I picture it like in a crazy, vat, like clear vat being used to create all the beer from the factory. And we talked about this a little bit in the idea of it being like a slurm from Futurama, that everyone loves the soda slurm, but they don't realize that it's being made in this weird way. We know that Skullbob is sort of used to create energy for life, right? Like, that's why it brought the grandfather back. That's why all of these aliens are going to end up wanting it and everything. It is this weird thing that brings life. So the grandfather could only get it to work a little and create life, like the smallest little version of life, right? Which he was using with yeast. And that's why he used it to create beer, because he could like bring the yeast to life, because like you need that for beer. Like it's sort of living. It's like a living thing that you're brewing. And that's why he was like, oh, I can make beer with it. And
Yeah, and I think at this part in the story, because Ryan had a really long conversation about this, is that we're probably a little loose on exactly what it was, but we knew that Robert was like finding that it had some sort of like life-giving features or something that re-energized or did something, and we could never figure out how to harness it. That's why he was such a recluse. And
he knew like maybe it was going to save the world or it was going to do something. And he was like, I just have to be able to figure out. Okay, now that he's dead, he can't keep the like energy or the you know, transmission or whatever the skull sort of radiates from itself under wraps. And now these sort of outside alien species who don't care about the Earth, right? Like it is this little backwoods water planet. Like now they're getting these things that like, oh my God, one of these life-giving skulls is on this planet. You know, maybe it's an ancient alien or something like that. Okay. And then finally we have this alien archaeologist, right? And so I like the idea of him just being like happenstance. Like he is sort of out, you know, archaeologists in the universe looking for old things like this. And he happens to be in the vicinity and picks up on that signal while it's still very, you know, low and kind of in its containment unit. And now is sort of tracking it on his wrist. You know, he's got like a wrist thing. He comes down and he's kind of like trying to blend in, trying to just sort of suss it out. He doesn't have a bunch of weapons or things like that, you know, that maybe these other aliens do. And he's just trying to sort of, you know, find it out, but use Roby in that sense.
I don't know yet.
Totally.
That's a good question.
Yeah, that's definitely a good question that we want to talk about. Okay. So the alien picked up the signal, trying to pose as a human to find the skull. That's why he's in the bar. He's sort of asking questions around it. He's not a warrior. He's an archaeologist, right? And he knows he'll need Roby's help to find this skull because he knows straight off the bat by his wrist thing that it's not that one in the case, basically.
And so, if you don't mind,
Absolutely.
I'll jump in and so what I was thinking was like, how do you build in like this into a game? And one of the things that I appreciate what Ryan had kind of proposed, and I think is the way to do this, is that we're telling you the story right now, but we're not going to just be like, hey, here's the story, and you read all these pieces.
Right.
Some of it is going to be inferred. You're going to find little documents and things that start to tell you and uncover some of this story. There will be some cutscenes that will show you like the alien bleeping on like, uh-oh, there's something coming.
Right.
I must go.
Exactly.
And mysterious. But here was one of the things that I particularly liked is that the grandfather was like thought of as this deadbeat.
Yeah.
It's like, dad had passed away and he like never helped Roby out.
Yeah.
And Roby's like feeling like mad about that. And he really wished that like he had that. He's sad that he lost his grandfather, but he's like, the guy never did anything.
Yeah. He was this adventurer at one point and came up with this one beer and then just like became a drunk and a recluse or something like that, you know, and behind the scenes, it was a dick to me all the time as a kid.
100%. And so what I think is a really awesome arc that we would do is that Roby's getting interviewed by this archaeologist, like, hey, that's not the real skull. And Roby's like, whatever, I know what a real skull is. This has been here all my life because it had been there since a kid. And so at some point he kind of like really looks at it almost like, wait a second, what's this little thing on it?
Yeah.
And essentially it's the first clue.
Right.
And it's something maybe the grandfather left him. And so as we looked at the inventory that we were collecting, is you're collecting the clues, the pages and little parts that the grandfather put together. And he starts to tell a story to where he starts realizing, oh my God, my grandfather wasn't like a recluse and a jerk. He was protecting me.
Yeah.
And there's some story there. And we're not going to give away every little detail at this point. Plus, we don't necessarily know that yet. But the concept is that you're collecting these clues to find your way to this actual skull.
Well, and you need character development, right? 100%. You need someone to go from this state that they were at the very beginning, and now that they've grown and they've done, you know, something, and now they're at this state at the end. And I love the idea of like Roby realizing throughout the entire time by conversations that he's having and things that he's learning, like just learning about his grandfather and what the grandfather did and what like his perception of him changes throughout this entire thing. And the idea that like he's sort of leaning on the archaeologist as it, right? Like he's sort of being like, oh, like at first he's very low on the dad, like, you know, stuff. And then he realizes throughout it that he was helping him and he was doing things. So then when the archaeologist betrays him at the end, he still feels like he can go on, right? He's not just going to kill himself. He's like, oh, like I don't screw that archaeologist by the end, right? Even though he did betray you, like I got the grandfather that was doing stuff for me and like now I'm going to go get him, you know, like I'm going to like get that archaeologist guy, get our Skull Bob back and, you know, do the name of the Decker family or whatever.
So here's the deal is that might be our cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Cuz we're not going to so if he gets betrayed at the end of here, you're not going to know why he was betrayed. You can know he's good. Is he bad? You're going to have some questions as to what's happening with that piece of it. Because I think our story arc fits within him finding the skull and at least getting to the point where he's betrayed.
So that is kind of like the high level, you know, like how we're making the character, what scenarios that we're going to be in. And I think kind of, you know, and not on tonight's show probably, but like what we would start doing is be like, okay, when they're in this section, what do we want to reveal and what do we want the player to learn about the situation within this section? And then make sure that the interactions that you're doing, going and getting keys, unlocking things, finding stuff under the skull, like we're not going to have too many of those because this entire thing is probably, you know, a couple hours, right? Like, you know, maybe an hour and a half, something to go through it. So then we're saying like each one of these sections really has to tell the story and get this like arc going for that.
And I think that's like a good point. We just played a bunch of games where it's like, hey, bang, bang, shoot, shoot. And that's fine. We want to tell a freaking story here.
Right.
And we're going to use a Game Boy platform to do it. And so we're going to try to cram as much as we can into this kind of a story where you collect, but you learn and you understand how.
And I think it's like about talking with people, talking with patrons in the bar a little bit, like finding notes and reading them, stuff like that. I feel like we're going to lean into if I had to guess.
Absolutely.
Okay. So what I was looking at, should we not show that?
Okay. That's our behind the scenes. That's how we plan the show.
Yeah, that's true. So I was reading, we can switch back to it now if you want. I was reading this thing from Subtractive Design and it was like, you know, Metroidvania 101. And this was this guy's, and I don't know who this is, and maybe he is a nobody who has never made a game in his entire life. I don't know. But I read through this and I was really like, how I sort of thought of this, of how we would do this in my mind was like, great, we have this story. Now let's start setting up these levels. What kind of, you know, are we jumping onto platforms and doing things? What is the, what is the jukebox? Give me a clue. I like that. Or arcade game where you have to play the arcade game and then do stuff like, and that's how you get some kind of, you beat the high score. That would be fun. Okay. So how I was thinking is you would be like, great, now let's just start building out levels, right? Like we know he's going to be running and jumping and doing stuff and we know that there's going to be interactions. And what this Metroidvania 101 article talks about is like, yes, you need to know sort of like your basic storyline of everything. But they said before you even start doing the levels, like you really got to know what are the mechanics. What are the mechanics? What are the mechanics that you're going to use in the game? Because you're going to be going back and forth throughout all of these levels with all the different mechanics at some point, probably. And what you don't want to do is be like, right, he's only going to be jumping or doing stuff on the very first level.
Okay.
And then be like, great, build out that entire level so that it's fun and you're jumping and doing stuff. But then when you realize you have a double jump and a slide or something like that, or a rail gun that shoots you up out of the ground or whatever, then you're like, now it's not fun or now it's not interesting to go through. So their suggestion was that and I'll let you read through it. I think you should
I
read through
will,
this,
absolutely.
like read through this. And so like their suggestion is you should really come up with like the very specific, like ways that the character is going to, like the abilities that they're going to get and the weapons that they're going to be able to use, and how you're going to gate certain sections. So they basically say, like, let's say you're going to have 5 things. You're going to have a double jump. You're going to have a fireball. You're going to have what do they call it? Like a poison suit. And you're going to have a cat transformation. Like those are the ways that your characters are going to do things and the powers that they're going to get. And they basically say, like, you should build a screen for each transformation that you're going to do and be like, right, if you only had this power, can you get this power and get out of this room only using that power and make that fun, right? And then if you had both of those powers when you go into the next room, or if you could switch powers or do things, how does that work out? And then like once you start building that out, then you can build out the levels so that like you can use all of those different powers. And I'm explaining it poorly. You should definitely watch this thing. But one part of this, and I'll click back to our Trello board here, is they had some like, here's some questions, and you should even switch it over to this because I think it's interesting for people to see.
It's text.
And like, yeah, that's true. It is text. But I thought it was like some very interesting questions of like basic level stuff. And I would say probably half of these we already have answered. But there was definitely stuff where I went.
Read some about. I think what we should
like,
do is we'll just read them out because then that people can.
Okay.
I know who's going to read.
So
on
like,
screen.
is it 2D or is it 3D? Obviously, it's 2D because we're doing this with the Game Boy. How does the camera work? Well, it's side scroller, right? We decided that we didn't want that RPG above the head style of that. What does the player control? Is it a character, a vehicle, an object, etc.? We're guessing it's a character, right? It might be that we want somewhere you're playing as the alien archaeologist, right? Like sort of Mike Azul was saying, like, oh, can we sometimes play as that? So like, these are all things that I feel like we should kind of fill out, like as maybe not right now, but I just want to like get your opinion on them because we sort of have a general idea. Okay. What is the style of the game? I would say it's sort of, so this says sci-fi, fantasy, realistic, cartoony, exaggerated, things like that. I would say it's sort of realistic with sci-fi.
I would say sci-fi, realistic, cartoony.
Cartoony. Yeah. I mean, it kind of has to be cartoony because like just,
It's not Mario cartoony though. It's like your character looks like a little dude.
He looks like a guy, but I'll even show you some of the different like run cycles that I did or like looked at with sort of Dolly and other ones. And he has a very like, haha, like runny, like his arms go way out. He's not like sort of,
what was that
like,
again?
Haha, like, yeah, like sort of Mickey Mouse style, like big, movements. So it's more exaggerated like that.
Sure.
Okay. So then what defines the game and makes it stand out to players? So we're talking about, we want it to be like the storyline that we're saying, as opposed to really hard platforming, right? Or really difficult bullet hell, interactions from enemies, right? I almost feel like Mega Man that we were playing is a little more bullet hell, right? It's like lots of bullets and you got to dodge them and you always got to be like figuring out the thing. I feel like it's going to be less of that. It's going to be a little bit more story. Okay. So like define the base player package properties. What can the character do before acquiring any abilities? So let's say he's in the bar.
Right.
Is the bar no abilities at that point? Is it like a punch that he can like interact? Or is it like he gets the bat and can use that inside of the bar and then does something else when he gets inside of the brewery, let's say?
So in my mind, because that's something I thought, is that you're walking around and collecting and maybe reading a few things, and you're like queuing yourself up, and then the first thing you get into is when you step out a door, you're like, better grab the bat because you're going into some like...
Right.
I imagine how it would work. This is like I'd been thinking about since we talked last, is you're in the bar, he sees the skull, he finds some kind of clue that says, oh, shoot, I got to go do this thing. And he goes over to maybe the jukebox and he like plays a specific song in a couple order. And then like a door opens up that he never knew was there. And he's like, oh, snap. And he like grabs the bat at that point and walks into the door. So the whole first part is him with nothing.
So it's like him nothing. Like we're basically saying like so here's what I was thinking. Maybe it's a double jump you get at some point. Like or a higher level. Like maybe it's just literally traversal only in the bar.
Okay.
Like so we're teaching the player, here's what you can do in terms of traversal. So we give them a double jump at some point or a dash or something. Like let's say there was something that we could give them for that. Like you would be like, you're going to use this throughout the entire game to explore and do things. And so you're learning about it and you're doing stuff. Now, if that's too complicated, if you're like, oh, double jump, like I don't think I want to like figure out that stuff. I feel like we could cut that and just have it only be walking around inside of there.
Oh, and let's try to get like, let's push and stretch ourselves.
Sure.
It's like list out some of these things. And I almost feel like I should be like writing some of this down on the whiteboard or something at this point, because we're getting to a point where
do you want to just like list it in here on this stuff, or do you want to do it on the mural board? Like we could do it on the mural
if you
board.
you want to write into some of this, like maybe I just create some sort of things. If you look on the whiteboard way in the back.
Oh, right. Double back. Yeah. Oh, nice.
I already had like been thinking about those things.
Nice.
So what we could do is we let's start this with the bar. Maybe what are you saying and you're proposing right now, from just want to kind of echo back what I'm hearing.
Sure.
Is we're going to have to think about what are all of the things we're going to do in the game before we can just focus in and start building each level up.
I think that's their suggestion, right?
Okay.
Is you figure out like,
which makes sense.
The more that you can figure out, like here's the progression of the abilities that your character is going to get and how it's going to affect how they can defeat enemies or traverse the environment, right? And once you figure that out and you actually build it and you do the thing and it seems fun and you can do that, like, because they said oftentimes you'll build them out and then you'll be like, actually, it's more fun if I move this one to the beginning. Right? Like if I give them the double jump at the beginning, it's more fun than giving it 3 sections in. And that's when you can move it around. So then when you start building the actual like platform of the level, you know, all right, they have the double jump at this point. So I need to hide things at this level and have like, and they can't break through walls, but I want to show them that wall that they could break through so that when they get the shotgun 3 levels down, they remember, I got to go back to the bar and shotgun that thing underneath.
That I think you're hitting on why it's important, because you could build the bar level and maybe you never could get to the attic or something. And now you get the double jump and you like pull a door down. Or something
or there's breakable blocks and you need to be able to shoot to get the breakable blocks, which have a room off to the side that tells you something new that allows you to get up into the attic. Right. Mm-hmm. And so like, those are the things, if you don't know what those things are, and they were saying like, you could come up with them, but if you design them and you're like, this isn't fun, you shouldn't build out or be thinking about how you're going to use your spread gun if the spread gun is not fun in your game.
I feel like we should. I want a whiteboard or something, because then like it would be fun to do that. Let me see if we can get to the whiteboard.
Do you want to go up to the whiteboard and I will like, because are people going to be able to hear you on the whiteboard?
Oh man, I had like the wireless mic, which I didn't set up, but I could have.
Well, see, I mean, we could sort of hear you, I imagine, right?
Yeah, you can probably hear me if I do it a little bit further.
Yeah.
Kind of. All right. And you know what? We could put you up on this here. So
yeah, there we go.
See where the things are. I mean, it's not like I have to go anywhere specific. I can move this thing around.
Right.
All right, let's do this like this. All right.
Nice. Okay, so maybe do you want to put abilities up there? Like what abilities do we want? Oh, can I do it
Zoom
up?
it out? Yeah, you can.
There we go.
Yeah.
Nice. I'll be the controller here. Okay. So like Roby abilities.
So we said a bat already.
So I had cricket bat as part of the thing. Like I feel like it has to be a cricket bat. It can't just be a normal bat.
Are we doing Ninja Turtles now? Is this?
That's a hockey stick. Come on.
No. Remember in the original Ninja Turtles, he plays cricket. What's Casey Jones?
Casey Jones plays hockey.
Yeah, he has the hockey thing.
He has the hockey
but
thing.
Did he have a cricket?
Does
bat?
he? I don't know. Maybe he does. I know definitely hockey stick. Okay, so cricket bat. I like the idea of cricket bat as melee, right? So maybe you want to put that so that's the melee weapon.
Yeah, let's do it like this. I'm gonna do a little bit different. I'm gonna read.
Adam has a very particular way, I'm sure, that he wants to write these or do things. And Adam's removed the E from Roby. So,
sorry. That's just habit.
Roby, that's fine. I'm fine with Roby with no E.
Okay.
It seems more modern, maybe.
So I wanted just to say the types first.
Okay.
Then we can say what it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So Roby abilities, cricket bat. I also like the idea of one transversal thing. Like, is that a slide, a dash, a grapple hook, a double jump
to get somewhere
to get to new places, right? Like I almost like the idea of him being like, and I don't know how he gets it at the beginning. Like, how do you just learn how to double jump? So maybe it's like a slide under something. Like a
drunken stupor? No.
Like a pass out. So maybe we don't need that,
I mean, that seems like something you get later.
Maybe you get it later. Maybe you get so.
I mean, he has the roll jump. He's like an acrobat already.
Obviously there's some suspension of disbelief about his abilities.
You could
no
just do it
what.
where he has a regular jump and then that roll jump gets him into some other kind of hijinks.
Yeah, maybe he has a normal jump and then a kind of slightly higher roll jump.
Yeah, let's do that. So there's two types.
And you could do any sort of BS that he drinks a Red Bull or something, right? Or he drinks some kind of energy drink and is able to do his little front flip jump. Okay.
Yeah, and so with that was one thing I would say is that I had learned, and I did that in the very first demo, is you find a box and you touch the box and then you get the thing.
Yeah.
So I was thinking you could collect these things as you go along, or you could put them throughout the world. So let's say there was a gun, and in the first level you find the gun and you have to shoot something, you get that, but then you go through the door and for whatever reason now have nothing again, you're back to base. And then you're running around and then you find new things. So in this case you get the bat and you get the jump in that space.
Yeah, well, do we think it's a thing that I put away the bat and I bring out the gun?
We could do both. Yeah.
So that I'm switching between weapons, or is it an area has a weapon that you use?
I like the idea of an area has a weapon.
So let's say it was bat inside of the tavern. So you're or in the tavern you get the bat right before you leave. And to me, I like the idea of nothing. You have nothing in the bar. You're collecting, you're doing stories, you're learning how to jump around and what the game is about. You get a bat right before you're about to leave for the brewery in the back. But then if you've noticed, you smash down the wall or something like that brings you into the brewery, the secret entrance into the brewery or whatever. And you realize that the thing that you smashed looks like other things that were in the tavern that you could go back and smash up and find new secrets and things like that. Or you can continue into the tavern. Anyway.
No, so what you're saying is that it's not just melee, it's more smashing things.
Yeah, it's like melee and also finding secrets with that.
Okay.
So there's like walls that you could break, or the little box in the corner that had his thing is now I can smash it open and find that note.
So it's like secrets, it's enemies. Okay.
It's enemies. Yeah.
All right, and then the normal jump is you just jump on things. Like, I'm going to Home Alone again.
Yeah.
Jump on the stool. You're jumping around things. You're just trying to get around, essentially.
Yeah, and maybe we don't have the double jump or maybe the roll jump is like an extra thing that you get.
What would be the difference? Why would you use a roll jump over a regular?
It goes higher, I guess. Like, or it can, like the Metroid roll gets you into places, right? So you could be like, oh, if I roll jump into this vent, now I'm in the vent where I was just normal jumping next to it. But when I roll, like the roll jump is smaller.
The jump could be like higher or something. I liked what Mike Azul said in the chat. What types of enemies would Roby be
totally
fighting?
We're gonna be getting we're totally gonna get to that,
because I think that's important in how the enemies might work. So we talked about the bat being like smacking a rat or something like that.
Like, well, I feel like in the bar when you see it the first time in the first sort of version of it, it is just a normal bar. And so maybe they're enemies, maybe it's a rat, right? Maybe it's spiders or something, like who knows, like normal things in there. That was my idea. Easy to kill or easy to jump over and avoid if you don't have anything. Yeah.
And so we were saying what? Simple enemies
that need to be able to be avoided even with no weapon.
It's like a drunk or something.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you smash things. All right.
Okay, so second level of Roby abilities. I think once you've made it through the tavern or once you made it through the brewery with the bat, you're fighting you're using the bat in the brewery until you get to the skull, and then the skull gives you your next power, and I feel like it should be a shooty power.
Is it the skull yet? Because I kind of feel like you should use the skull at the end.
But like I feel like it's neat to be like because what are you learning when you go through the brewery? You're learning that like things are not what they seem. Mm-hmm. That there is really there is no beer getting brewed in the actual stills, and you're ending up in this place where like your grandfather, it's going from real world to behind the scenes. But
we're not
world.
There yet, because you're in the tavern, and then there's the basement and then the attic.
Those are, I feel like, sort of the non, like, you have cricket bat, I guess, but so it's to get out of there.
Spiders in the attic, and rats in the basement.
Totally, right? And that's just sort of teaching you like, okay, they're going to be harder enemies coming up at some point, right? That you're going to have to deal with, because I feel like in the brewery, you're fighting aliens.
Actually, I don't think you're fighting aliens yet. I'm gonna push back on that, because I think what we were saying is that you get the normal enemies, spiders and rats. We fight the aliens when we're like getting to the loft.
No, okay. I you know what I like? I like the idea of the enemies in the brewery being like reconnaissance bots or something like that, right? It's like the aliens have sent down the drones to figure out what the hell is going on, and they're like analyzing things and scanning stuff, and if they see you, they like laser you or something, but it's not like it's like the drones, it's the robot reconnaissance sort of level. So they're harder to kill than rats, and they take more sort of, finesse perhaps, But
So what are you using to kill him again?
I think you're using at this point your bat. Like that's you're getting up to the point where as you're moving through, because you've only gotten the bat right as you've left the tavern.
So, but if you're okay, let's just think this through. So
Totally.
you're in the tavern, you go to the attic in the basement, you're killing things with your bat.
Yeah, I think like well,
Could you find something else to like upgrade your bat?
yeah, like maybe it's a bit. This is always one of those things where like, how complicated do you want to make it, right? Like, if it feels like we can go and like upgrade things and do things, then like, yeah, I'm into that.
Well, just like let's do our desired state.
Yeah,
Like where we could be if we could really push it without getting too crazy.
sure.
And then, within the Game Boy constraints, and then we'll just scale it back. If we're like, hey, we can't have two bat types. But essentially what you would do is you'd have two, because I'm thinking about how you do this, you'd have two different sprites of the bat. One that's like the one that's a little green, and then one that's like
has
black
barbed wire,
blinking.
a barbed
Yeah,
wire,
barbed wire one.
wrapped around it.
Yeah, I think that's sweet. So like, or when you kill one of the robots, you're like, oh man, it dropped this like metal thing.
I like the idea of like, if you paid attention and you went around, thank you, and you read the story and you checked out all the things and you did all the stuff, it led you to the secret bat that you could get that is more powerful. But you could make it through the rest. If you never found it, you would always have the normal cricket bat. It would just be harder to kill all of those different things. And I like the idea of the enemies being able to just be like jumped over or done things. And then you kind of get the bat and then you're like, oh crap, now I can get to places that I couldn't get before, or I can kill these enemies that were in the way. Or I could go along, or I could go just keep moving through the story and go to the brewery. Nice. The different beers come on tap that give you regen options, because that's what it talks about too. Is like, how do you get health back? Do you get health back?
God, I love that. I mean, how do we not lean into that?
Totally.
I've been thinking about beers in some capacity. I just didn't think about it.
Yeah, like that's what you're finding in like giving yourself, regen health back.
Yep. All right. I kind of put everything up here, but I was going to so we have tavern, and maybe what we'll do is I'm going to change this area to not weapons, because that top area is the weapon abilities.
Okay.
But then we have to have our regen and all our stuff. So different beer types would be awesome.
Yeah.
Like
I could see that.
Like the stout or the
light beer,
the whiskey shot or something. You get invincibility with the whiskey shot.
I also thought my whole thing at one point was that the entire family is borderline alcoholic all the time. It's just a fun character thing of dealing with that, right? They all know the grandfather was that. The dad was sort of like it, but maybe nerdier or something. And that Roby is always sort of drinking beer and doing stuff. And that's the thing he's trying to get over. I like the idea of the archaeologist being like that. The archaeologist being like, hey, I'll drink a few pints and figure out where the skull is and go on this little side adventure.
Okay. So we got beer, health, regen. We can do all beer types, light, dark.
Yeah, it could be fun, fun little
The stout has to be.
Yeah, that's the main.
One.
That's the main one. Okay. So one of the other abilities, so I thought you would be melee attacking through the first half of the brewery, and then when you find the skull at the very top, that's when you a bunch of storyline is revealed, all this stuff happens, you take the skull with you, and that's where you get your ability to let you fight back through the brewery, basically. So now you have a badass weapon, some sort of shooty weapon, I would think. I don't know exactly what it does, but you're going back through, and now they're different enemies because the reconnaissance robots have been like, holy shit, we got him. He's got it. It's out of its containment area. And now like the first level of harder alien enemies are now in the bar. And like, to me, I thought it would be cool if like, as you're fighting back through the bar, it's the same sort of layout, but some of the sprites and backgrounds and things like that are different, right? So like aliens are screwing it all up and busting it all down or like crashing into things. This is where the S is hitting the F.
So one thing about the skull power that I like is, what if it was that you get it and you're just like, you're trying to get the skull, and then when you get it, it gives you like, you don't have to regen anymore. It's like Halo health or something. Because we
it's
always
like
say
auto.
It's an energized, because like I think it might be weird that it just instantly turns into a weapon. Like maybe you get it and you're like, and so it just gets harder to get out. But the regen on the health helps you get out, because that's
Totally.
the cool part of it. It's like when you hold the skull, you regen.
Yeah, I can see that, because like how you could do it, because I love the visual of the skull strapped onto Roby's back with like leather straps. All right, I just feel like I drew that at one point. I loved that drawing. It was like one of my favorite things that came out of the original sort of concept art of Skull Bob's, but it doesn't have to mean that it's powering whatever weapon that he has. It could be that the alien gives him a weapon, right? Like maybe the archaeologist goes, holy crap, there's a whole bunch of aliens coming to get us right now. Like take this pulse rifle or whatever we end up giving him.
I like that.
Like, and then he goes, bam, I got the skull in my back. We got to get the hell out of here. Archaeologist guy, take this pulse rifle with you. And now you're fighting back through the same area. It feels like Halo, where you're like, oh, I fought through it looking one way, and now I'm fighting back the opposite way, down or out or whatever, and finding new little things that I couldn't get to before because I didn't have a shooty weapon, but now I have a shooty weapon, so I can find things. And like, yeah, right. It's like the skull is the thing that you are trying to get and get out of there with. So you're jumping through. Now, once you get into, so I feel like all of this, like you're fighting back through, you're going back through the tavern, right? Like maybe you end up back in the tavern and there are different sprites perhaps. Like that would be cool. I don't know if we're going to be able to do all of that. And then now you have the final spot where you can get up into the grandfather's attic, right? Now that you have the shooty gun and all of this stuff happening. And then I don't know if we want to do one more sort of ability that you get as you're going through the grandfather's apartment. I don't know.
Well, yeah, because I put attic, but I should have said loft.
Loft, yeah.
Because when we say tavern, that infers attic and basement, right?
Yes, like that is sort of one section, is what I was thinking. And I don't know, like, is there something that you like? I hadn't gotten this far of like, oh, okay, there's a different ability that we want for this end section. And part of this was too, I was like, maybe just Adam does some, like, what is interesting or fun in abilities in GB Studio games that are sort of like kind of easy-ish to do. It's nothing.
It's whatever we decide and try to build out. It's just, how do you combo some of these together?
Right.
I like the idea that it's iterative. You're building that melee and that jump in the first part. Then you get the melee jump that's a little bit more, so you can get through the brewery easier and get to some of those parts. And you have that alien rifle.
Right.
You get the skull regen, and I think you still have the rifle there.
Yeah, I think like you basically now, it's almost like you're building on everything, right? Like you got some extra traversal things in the tavern. You got the melee right as you went into the brewery. As you fight down through the brewery, you have a shooty weapon. As you, Darth Korrikan, what about levitate? Like some kind of like this. I like the idea of you sort of like the alien archaeologist helping you unlock some of the skulls thing, because he knows about it, right? Roby, the grandfather, didn't know crap about it. He was, fiddling around with whatever 1940s like scientific equipment. Of course he didn't do anything. Yeah. The shooty weapon. And so like I like the idea of like him. Maybe there's cutscenes, maybe you're just interacting with him, you're going into rooms and talking with him and being like, oh man, he was like, hey, if you did this thing and like, I'm going to cram this into the top, like I have something that's like an alien thing, we can give him whatever technology we want. And it's like, holy crap. Now it's like built you out and now you have giant punching arms. Like, that's why I feel like you could do whatever you want. Right. So you're like, what do we want that it would be fun once he got that? You can use whatever, storyline BS you want to make it realistic. But
well, and what I'm thinking right now is that if we're building this out, and I'm going to take the advice that you're saying from this build out, is let's build a couple levels with like the iterative kind of growth of what this looks like.
Totally. And so this has a bunch more. I would just want to like highlight level, because we have like half an hour left and I don't know what you would necessarily want to do with this, but I'm just going to like highlight some and maybe we can hit on a few that you think are interesting.
One thing I definitely want to do is do a bar level design, because I think that this is going to help us just do some traversal between some different areas there.
Yeah.
And so I have this thing so we could flip it and we can start doing some level design.
Yeah, like so maybe do you hold on. I looked up, and I don't know if this would be interesting to you, but I was just looking up like what do Metroidvania sort of levels look like? Or how do they, like these are basically like full sprite. Here's the entire level of some Castlevania, I'm sure. Right. Or I had, there was a really good one in here. It's like a 5,000 pixel.
Jeez.
Like, so this is the entire, level that you go through. And I was like, all right, it doesn't seem like it needs to be all that complicated necessarily.
No, I like that one.
Like that was a good one. Here was another, like this is like Castlevania, right? Like they do a lot of going up through things and walking up this, and then there would be like flying bat enemies here and things like that.
And this
right?
one too has that like more limited jumping. I like that because it feels more realistic. The way that we have it now, where he just like jumps like a crazy man.
Right.
I think that we do that, but it's more of when you get to the skull and you have all the powers at that point.
Okay. And what I like about this one too is like, let's say you were going up through here. Like I picture this being the brewery. Like you're doing a lot of upward traversal. There's like drones flying around and seeing you and lasering you and doing stuff. But you're like, really, this is not that complicated of a thing, right? It's just like
go to the AI versions of the. Let me show you this, because I think that was helping me. Not that it was perfect, but what it did is it brought me into like a concept, and I'll show you in a second.
Oh God, the AI ones that you showed, they were like so dense with stuff.
Oh my God,
in them.
yes.
I was like, oh, Adam, do not think that our game is going. I feel like it's like a disservice to think our game is going to look like this.
I don't think it is, but what I wanted to do is get like a concept down to say like, that's kind of what you were just showing. So let's see here. Can I open this elsewhere? So we can jump into it. What I wanted to do is get kind of an idea of what would a brewery look like that's like crazy in different worlds like this. And there's way too much shit everywhere.
Sure, but like the idea that you would be going across and then down into something, or you could go up, like I'm thinking along the bottom here.
You know what I really like the idea is that the brewery is like half of it is underground in this area that you never would know. And I was kind of like, Robert Decker was always a recluse because of why?
Yeah.
Because something's going on with this skull that he's like trying to cover up and stop from happening. So I always
Right.
thought that maybe he started the brewery and he found the skull, like made the brewery work, and that's why he got popular. But something happened, and this is where we said robots. But what if the byproduct was like these goo monsters that came up, and so he just like built down really far underground, and that's where he like the skull lives at the very very buried, like the deepest part of that.
Okay.
And you're like fighting your way down to get to it through all
Right.
these little like goo monsters or whatever.
Okay.
That was that. So that's
And
where
they're being released right now because he died, and the protection that was around the skull or whatever is.
well, yeah, and I think that's the concept was those could be the enemies in the brewery. And the aliens know about it. They're like, I don't want to deal with all the crap that's in there.
Right.
And Roby's like going through, and that's why they're not coming in. And I think the robots a little bit would be also awesome. Like their reconnaissance, and they can see where they're at.
Yeah.
But he like Roby gets in there and he goes to the basement. He's like, there's nothing here. What is this? And like he breaks apart and there's a door. And now he goes a little bit deeper.
Well, I love the idea of like, let's say at the beginning of the brewery level, you're breaking through from the basement of the tavern into the brewery's like a secret place that maybe the grandfather was occasionally. And so you're finding new things, and you're seeing like, hey, the brewery is maybe not exactly what it feels like. You're sort of getting introduced to that idea. Then you're fighting through the brewery legit with trucks coming in and bringing things out. Mike Azulas, who's running the brewery to begin with? And I would say like, hey, there's, it's a popular beer. There's managers, there's trucker, there's workers back there adding the beer into trucks and trucking it out to the grocery store and all of that. Like there's a whole thing that's happening there. And like, it's just a normal brewery, but then you find out that all of the beer is not actually getting brewed by brewers and all of that you would normally do. It's all just getting pumped from the skull.
Which is in the basement.
Which is in my mind, it's at the very top of the
Okay.
thing because
Okay.
you would have the flow of the
Okay,
beer
fair enough.
going down all the way through like the thing. That was just sort of my, like, maybe you end up in the basement at below, you learn a little bit because it's a shady basement. Then you're fighting up through the entire brewery, and the bottom part is trucks moving and doing stuff. And as you get further and further and higher up into the top of the basement, you're getting more into the grandfather's like workshop area that's sort of behind the scenes, and you're learning more and more about like why this is a shady brewery or what he was doing up there. Yeah,
Absolutely.
Follow the pipes.
Well,
Nice.
and that's I think that's 100% follow the pipes, and that like hits on what I was trying to say here is that each of these layers starts to get more macabre or different, and like there's a threshold where once you get past it, like maybe it was grandfather's DNA or whatever that can get you. So all those workers are just like, yeah, there's something going on up there, but they didn't know
that's
about it.
Robert was always, Decker was always up there like doing stuff, and he would come down occasionally and get a few pints of beer off the line and then bring it back up to his thing. We could never get up there, but maybe old Joe down in the corner, he would know the code to get it, and all of that garbage that you're going to do anyway.
Well, and I think that's where you get the code from your little clues that you get.
Yeah, or like things that you're doing or stuff that you've like, maybe you have to go back down into the basement and find where that clue is and stuff like that. Do you want to switch it back to or are you?
Yeah, I was gonna say let's do, if you could, because I think this would be helpful for now, and let like what you get that.
Yeah, no, Resprite app on my iPad, and definitely not good with it yet, but I had a little thing for you guys. You don't have to use it, but it would be good practice for me. I uploaded a screenshot of the Asprite file in the Discord. Amazing. Yeah, I can't wait to look at that. Be careful. That's awesome. Thank you. Resprite. I will have to look at that. So do you like it? Do you like it better than Asprite? Because I do have an iPad with an one of those eye pencils or whatever.
All right, I think we got some good pieces down.
Yeah.
What I want to do just to be able to continue with the mechanics work.
Yeah.
Is I really wanted to get away from the brewery or the version that we have now, and it's just a bunch of random stuff. I'd like to populate some, like, I got to get a feeling of the game's design.
Yeah.
So as we start doing some of these I guess melee weapons and other things, like how are they going to interact and how big are these things going to be and what like kind of blocks would we create? I want to like figure out what the bar looks like.
Okay.
In some capacity. So here's what I was imagining. You'd have like the bar, right? And let's say, you know, there's like a bar here.
Nice.
And like some sort of skull that's here.
It's all your shoulder though. All we're seeing is
thank you. Thank you for that. So you have the, you know, the bar, and then maybe they, like, you know, we were talking about a jukebox over here. Like I imagine there would be like, you know, this thing where you go into the floor and now you're in like another like little room. And I'm gonna erase all this right now. I'm just trying to do like blowing up really big, and maybe there was you know, behind the jukebox, and I'm gonna just dotted line, like the jukebox moves and there's another like room right there, and then this room has like another little room off of it.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going a little bit further down. You'd have to zoom out a little bit. But then what I'd like to do is like get some sort of version of this to where we say like there are like 7 different little rooms that you can get to off of this, and that way we can practice like you have to break a block to get into this room. You have to like get a code to get into this room.
Mm-hmm.
You have to figure out some other kind of like puzzle to get into like this room. And so what I'm trying to get is the mechanics of getting into different room sets.
Yeah. I mean, that's where like the interactions come in, right? And that's how you like use and do with that. I do think we probably are okay with having just sort of the idea of like maybe sort of one kind of bar room to begin with. And then you're like, oh, right. Is it like, so one of the things that they talk about in the article that I was giving you, right, is like, once you know that here's what the melee weapon does for Roby, right? Yeah. It smashes these types of blocks and it reveals these things and it does this type of stuff. And if you just build like almost one screen where you can jump around in there, you can smash blocks and you can do, and then you can get into the next room, where in the next room you get the laser rifle, if that's what the next like version of it is. And now you have a melee and a laser rifle. And like, what does that feel like, jumping around inside of that room and being able to find things and kill enemies and get out of that room with those two? And then when the next room, you have the jump, the laser, you know, the laser rifle and the thing, and then your second weapon, which is what, you know, whatever that one is.
I mean, that's basically what you're running the script on the what you read in that blog, right?
Yeah,
because then you're getting all the different weapon. Like, I just don't know how much weaponry I'm going to be able to. Like, I gotta.
I almost feel like we have two, right? Okay. We have like a melee, a shooty weapon, and something else. Maybe if you.
3.
Well, okay. Like, well, I was saying we have two, like, already that we know we want. A melee and a shooty weapon. But then, like, if you want a third thing and you think that you could do a third thing, then great. If you don't think that you could do a third thing, then. But I get what you're saying. I see what you're saying and what you're trying. Let me zoom out a little bit. What you're trying to do here, which is you're like, yeah. When I look at, you know, like what we had on the screen before, which is here's sort of the level layout of everything, right? And you're like, oh, okay, I'm starting over here in his little back room, and then I'm coming up through the kitchen of the bar, right? And there's a kitchen, and then there's the tavern off to the right-hand side. And I know that there's a ladder that goes up to the attic here, and a hidden ladder back in Roby's room that you can only get to after you get the cricket bat, let's say. And I feel like those are all, you know, like you've seen those Metroid maps. Like I have one in here where it just has little dots and it goes like, here's where you get a thing. Here's where you're going to use that thing. Here's where the exit is. Here's where the secret exit is. Here's where the power up is, and here's where the hidden power up is. Like it all has all of those little bits. I feel like we're gonna have to get to that at some point.
I'm right there, and I guess my piece right now is to get those physics down. I need to know like how high is the ceiling.
Yeah, like how high are we having him jump? Are we having him jump Kevin McAllister level jumps, or are we having him jump Mega Man jumps?
So if this is the bar, right?
Yep.
Let's just say these are stools. These
Sure.
are really bad stools. Like he could jump on a stool, on this, and then like would there be like a bunch of like alcohol or something, like a shelf with a bunch of stuff, and then he could climb on this and get over to something to like open up another door. So what I'm trying to figure out is like what are the objects in the room that we're able to jump around on and kind of get throughout the level.
Yeah.
Because then once I can get the like the physics of like, oh, he has to jump only this high at this point.
So he's 32, right?
And I think that's fine. Like I don't know. Yeah, he's 32.
He's 32. Let's say he could jump 16.
Okay.
Right? Which is half his own height. Which what I would say is like he would be the size of that door, right? And half his height is the size of the bar stool. So he can't jump straight onto the top of the bar. He could jump onto a bar stool and then he can jump onto the bar.
Yes.
Right? That's what I would say. Like that seems like more realistic somewhat, I would say at least. But that would be a good like test of your thing. And there's like a pool table there and he could jump onto the pool table or he could just walk past the pool table.
And this is where I'm trying to get to is what about all this space right here?
Yeah, so I feel like that's where you see a lot of there either is nothing. So like let me draw for a minute.
You want the black one or the
whatever.
All right.
So part of it is like this is the entire Game Boy screen. Right?
Oh man, I think that's like multiple screens.
And then like this is dark. And just like the squares, you know, that you repeat over and over again. And then this comes down and it looks like this, right? And there's barrels here. And you're like, oh, right. I could maybe get up to where these barrels are if I had like a double jump, let's say, or something, or I was able to jump higher. But like, it's sort of everything else is kind of blocked out.
So I agree with you. The only thing is that's going to be really damn small as a square.
Well, like look at our levels of our guy right now.
All right, let's look at that. That's a square. That's like the entire square.
So that's an entire square. So if Roby is 32,
here I can take this little guy because this guy is 32.
Yeah. So like he's 32. So that means, like, you know, and let's say he could only jump one barrel height, right? So he can only jump as high. He can only jump this high.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So then wouldn't you have like other platforms here, or you would shove this up into the middle and have dark sections on the top and dark sections on the bottom?
I agree. I'm just thinking like this could be a lot longer. Like you should be able to walk the corridor of the bar. It should be
100%.
Like okay.
Oh yeah. Well, and that's why I feel like there should be an entire section that is just like pool tables. Right? Like you would see that at a bar, a big, cool, like, you know, or like an old rundown sort of bar, but a big one because it was popular. And like there's just a whole section that has entire like arcade games across it and things like that that are, so like that entire strip, I could see that being like, oh, there's parts that are pool tables, but then you only have to do one pool table, right? Because you're just duplicating them.
I'm right there with you, and that's where I'm trying to figure out, because this is my way to say like, okay, here's a gargantuan level where this could be the bar, this could be the attic, or maybe this is the bar and this is the basement or not. But we can't put it all in one. I've found that much, because we're gonna need to like duck into some rooms and do some other pieces.
So like go back to the mural board if you still have that one.
I do.
And I know we're coming to the end here.
What's on this one? It's on another one, I believe.
No.
Did we close it? I could probably go find it again.
I mean, I guess maybe you do you work in mural more than I do. All I do is type in mural and it goes, "Yep, here's the one that you work in."
Yeah, I'm pulling it up right here. Okay, we're almost there. So anyways, what you're saying?
So I'm saying like I had it a little bit in the mural board, which is basically like, and I only did this for the very beginning part of this, but if you look down at the bottom here, I had like maybe like Roby's room in the back of the tavern, right, where he sleeps or something, and maybe that's 3 screens wide, right? Or 160 times 3. Or maybe that's just one single screen and then he leaves and comes out.
Yeah.
So I was thinking like, yes, you would have an entire long tavern that you were going through, and it's like a room and there's interesting, or you're finding out things about something, or you need to get something to get out of the room. You have to find a key and you have to get out of the room or something like that. Because he's late for work or whatever.
So yes, I think we're on the same page of what we're trying to say here. And so like these boxes are indicative of those different room pieces. Like you said, like tavern kitchen back room, tavern storage, and Ruby's back room.
And I don't know, like maybe all 3 of these are one long room that you're in.
I think
right?
Because here's the thing, every time we break these into a scene, then we get like the reset on how many actors and what we can interact with.
Totally.
And so I'm trying to balance it out, like what we're gonna do. And so what I'm hearing is we can create kind of a multiple room scene similar to this.
Yeah.
And then I like this one's really long.
Right, because I was just like, well, the actual tavern would be the biggest part, and you would start in the smaller rooms because you would want it to be like, you would want it to look really great, right? Because it's the very beginning of the game, and you want it to be really cool and people to keep playing the game, and so you'd want it sort of dense with stuff.
So I'm agreeing, and I think the only challenge is I'm thinking that these rooms aren't linear left to right.
Yeah, maybe not.
In what I'm trying to figure out is like, where is the door in the tavern that leads to the storage? Is it right here?
Sure.
And I just need it though, like on a board.
But I don't. To me, I feel like, do we need that right now when we don't know what sort of like how high he's going to jump and what like things he's going to be shooting, and is he going to be breaking bricks, and is he going to be doing any of that? I feel like we sort of need to know those things before we lay that was
right.
That was the guy's thing in the article, which I will let you read through and see if like, because you're the one who's like doing a lot of this sort of platform stuff.
Yeah.
So
sure.
I don't want to be like, hey, we're doing it this way, and then you're like, that isn't gonna work.
Well, and that's what I'm getting at, is that if we could use this as our test run of at least the melee with the bat and some of those other pieces. What was it? The melee, probably the laser gun. We'll have to create another space for that.
Yeah.
What I wanted to make sure is we got like the jump down in the tavern. Like I'm just not going to be able to work on all 3 of those levels anyway. Yeah. So the first one that I would want to focus on is our bar.
Yeah.
And then the door thing helps me like say, okay, if we break down this, then you get into a door.
Yeah.
And so we know that we said we wanted something to break. We know we wanted to have a melee weapon. And so I would probably say having the bar and then like a door that you go into, and then like I would in the tavern or whatever, I'd have a rat, and you can go bust a rat's head.
Yeah.
And then in the storage, you'd have the spider, and that would come in. So then it gets us our full like vertical on just the tavern and the first level. And then I could say, okay, I know we're going to put rooms and all these other pieces. Now let's go to the next.
And what I could be doing in the background with the sprites and everything is being like, there's going to be one main bar that is like the amazing, cool Skull Bob's bar with the mirror in the background that has the giant logo or whatever, right? But then there's also probably like little bar. You know how like a bar will have like, oh, here's a small one off to the side. And there's just multiple because we're going to have a huge area, right? So it can't just be a gigantic bar. It's got to be like, oh, here's the arcade area and it has a bar and a pool table in it. And then here's the area over here that has a ton of arcade games, and like one dartboard on the wall and stuff. And so you're sort of like, you're building that out as one big level that you could be like, well, we need to make the bar tavern area twice as big because it's not fun to play through. And you'd be like, great, just duplicate some more, pool tables off to the right or whatever.
I think that's going to be my homework is I want to build out the bar. Do you have any bar assets that we could share or that we created? There was a pool table. I think you made it, but
I also had just like I liked the idea of the, we're going to need to fill up some of this area with just like non-playable background elements, right? Like anytime you see those, there's a whole section along the bottom that's just kind of wood background with and it just gives you the flavor of the space that you're in versus like being anything, because you're going to need to duplicate a lot of that stuff so you can stay under that, unique tile limit.
So we got the 3 areas or kind of powers that we have.
Right. Now
we need to figure out how, just how high these levels are is probably where I'm getting at. Is like, because if we're going to go through a level, the tavern, and we're going to say, hey, when we come back through it, we're going to want to get up to those barrels or whatever we just said, is like, is it that you go just one level up? Or is it 2 levels up? Like you can get to the barrels, and then if you get on top of the barrels, now you're jumping up into a place that you never even knew was up there.
Totally. Well, that's what I feel like. So let's say you had a single jump. Your normal jump is 8 pixel or 16 pixels tall. And so you can only get up onto things that have 16 pixels and then another 16 pixels. And you have to sort of, that's where you're like, levels are, and you're like, hey, before I give him the double jump, before I give him the high jump or whatever, you can only get to these spaces. So that like your early storyline stuff has to only be, but you want to also then be like, hey, there's this level and you could just barely not get to it, right? There's no way that I can get to that level and check out that spot. It seems like something cool is happening up there. Like, but I need to be able to jump 32 pixels tall. And that's where you get something that allows you to jump 32 pixels tall. Like, and it could be something, it could be stupid. It could be coffee, right? That like, now he's like revved up because he was hungover from last night. But now that he's got coffee, he's like able to jump that high. And so you're like, boom, now you can get to these certain areas. And so I think if we say, great, part of this is going to be him, getting a double jump at some point, then you could build a level around it.
So I've got the level designs. I guess I'm sick of running around in like a blank level so we got a Roby character now.
Yeah.
I'm like, let's put him in a bar, start getting the objects, because I'm just thinking from the mechanics piece right now is I'm going to have to tune that jump. And I just really need to know like, what are the size of some objects? So if there's homework for you, give me something to like build the bar, like bar table, jukebox, pool table. Because here's what I'm going to get at. This will be a good way to kind of end for tonight, so you can kind of get an idea of where we're headed. So what we have is him. He is now set up in our world, in something. So kind of imagine this like. Can I even get that high? I'm curious. Can I jump through that floor? No. Okay. Look how big he is to those barrels. These enemies. So that jump isn't terrible like Olead is. Look at that. It's
Pretty
like,
tall.
It's like taller than he is.
He almost needs a jump that's just sort of, like the Mario jump where he just goes like, and he can only do it like that high.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. And so right now, if he's only jumping that high, you're just like, okay, I could get on the barrel.
Yeah, like I could get over that, and that makes sense, right? Like that's what a human being could possibly do.
Like he wouldn't be able to get up to this platform.
Yeah.
Okay. But to get up to the platform is that he goes and he just grabs something, and now he's like, all right, I got my jump. Now I can go up here.
I think for right now, you're thinking about it as the entirety of the 144 tall. And I'm thinking it's going to have to be, there's going to have to be solid blocks, at least from what I see.
Uh-oh. Whoa, I blew something up. Whoa. Oh, it's because he didn't have a... That's hilarious. Boo! It's a glitch for sure.
That was like some Street Fighter.
Totally like broke him.
Oh, now he's just broken forever?
No, it's because something happened with the scripting I have. He doesn't have any other states. Sure. I bet you it's because he's climbing a ladder. Let's see if I can get through the level.
There you go.
Roby, you're so good. Okay, so that's enough. So what I think I'm saying is we have Roby. It's got me like, give me some pool tables, give me some other things, and then I can build the scope of like, okay, here's what it would be like if he was running around the level initially.
Yeah.
And then I would put a little power up because we can pick things up. He picks it up, and now you could see, and we can get him to that next level. And then we should have, a good vertical slice of the tavern. And so then by next time, we should be able to say, all right, we're going to get to the laser portion of this, and then we're going to build that layer. And we're following your script. It's just that the time that it's going to take me to build the first version of it is I got to start with the tavern. I'm not going to be able to come back with all three of them.
No.
So I just wanted a good idea of like how big it's going to be.
Yeah.
All the, like you just saw right now, he looks huge in this level. I don't know if you would say that.
The problem is like if you start making him less big than that, he becomes less detailed.
You'd make the level bigger though. You like make the sprites and stuff and a little bit bigger
that are around him bigger, sort of like the Home Alone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like you would make Home Alone. So it's almost like you're more zoomed in on the screen than because the Home Alone is. Do you think he's 32 pixels tall? I bet he's almost like taller than that.
I don't know. I think he's 16. I think he's small.
You think he's small inside of that?
You could count the pixels on that. I guarantee you could.
Right.
And maybe we do that. And maybe you go get because I think he's about the size of our character.
Yeah, you think he's smaller? You think he's half the size of our character?
I don't know.
I don't know, man. I feel like he's bigger than our character.
You think?
Like
Home Alone?
Bring up a screenshot of Home Alone.
Oh, geez. On the fly.
On the fly, live with -1 minutes left.
Home Alone.
Gay boy.
Sprites.
Well, I mean, you could.
Wow, look at that. Oh, where did it go? Classic. Why is it taking so long? All right.
Yeah, I think you're gonna have to do images.
He does.
Well, you got to have the whole screen. Okay, so look at like this one.
I see what you're saying. Compared it to the Jesus at Google. Man, that's slow. Need to get me some fiber here. What the hell?
Oh yeah, it doesn't have the right one.
Classic Google.
It's a dying platform, right?
Yeah.
Can't wait for AI to take it over.
Let's do it this way. Okay. Oh, it's like actual legit size. So there's that, and then let's put it next to ours.
Yeah. I think he's like basically that tall, right?
Yeah, he's the same.
And then like the full there, I mean, this like the Home Alone is like 1/5 of the screen is lives and hit points and what your entire
Wow.
Man, it's really freaking out.
I have no idea. Oh, it's because of my scripts is why. Because my scripts are taking over. It probably has something
My
going
scripts are taking over.
on. My scripts. All right. Fair enough. I think we got a lot today. I loved going through the AI hijinks. It was good just to do some quick hits.
Totally.
I don't know. What do you think about the game, though? We've got to a sprite of Roby. That was my big part because I've been running on this other little dude for a while.
Sure.
Now it's starting to feel like, all right, something's coming together.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we need like a normal jump for Roby, and like fill it out. Like I think he needs the crouch, right, and the crouch walk if we're gonna have all of those types of things.
So work on Roby.
Yeah, and then I think I'm just building things for the bar, right? It's basically like, okay, we need sprites for arcade cabinets, and we need sprites for the background, and we need sprites for that, and then we can just start sort of like filling it in as we go. I would love you to read that article for sure, because like I feel like it makes some great points of like how to go about this. And he was like, there's pitfalls that like every person that does their very first Metroidvania like falls into. And one of the big ones is just building out the levels. Like you're like, yeah, I'm ready to build out levels. And then you're like, no, but if you don't have all the stuff figured out, you're just going to have to end up rebuilding them.
Well, and that's what I'm fine with that, because I guess what I need to do is I need to build out something to test it.
Something to test it. Yeah. Well, and we need to know, like, because I still don't really know, like, how big can the levels be? Like how
huge,
intricate can they? Well, but I mean, like, how intricate can they be in the sense of like, you could say, oh, there's 192 unique tiles. Like, I don't really know in my brain what that means exactly. Like, is that a pretty full scene? Is that not very full scene? Like, I don't really know what that is. So I need to start like making a bunch of stuff just so we could throw it all together and be like, nope, that's too much. Pull some out. Okay, that seems about right of like how dense we're going to make
I mean,
this.
all of your thing is just a background of a scene. So if you really can just give me like a single flat bar scene that you put all your little icons in, and then I'll load it in, and then I'll be like, all right, I have to remove this much. Just go full bore to it based off of some sort of screenshots that you've seen, and then we can go from there.
Yeah, I'm going to basically steal from other screenshots of Metroidvania type games and sort of build it out kind of like that in the Game Boy thing, just so I have something to like go off of. So
awesome.
Hey,
thanks for hanging out tonight for everyone. We really appreciate it. We had a lot of folks all the way to the end here.
Yeah,
I know it's like
great.
Ryan and I vamping like nerds about a pixelated game.
That's what a Hangout is.
But this is how we do it. We would have been just doing this anyway by ourselves. And so I think some of the key takeaways here is like, can you play as the alien? Let's use the jukebox if we can. There's some regen opportunities if you start to drink some of the beers. I love that concept. It really ties it into the theme.
Yeah.
What other kind of major things we had? Be Careful, that talks about some cool apps. That Resprite app on iPad. Let's check it out.
Gonna share some like in the Discord, like some pixel art he's been doing.
Darth Goricon, I had like throw the marbles on the floor. Like
right.
What is there some other kind of like one-off things that you might be able to just grab? It was kind of like the Bugs Bunny game.
Right.
You could like pick up a bomb, chuck it off, and then you go back. I don't know. I think we have a lot.
I could see that. Grenades. That. That's what he gets at the end.
But the cool part of this is like we're in the open phase.
Yeah,
I remember being
we're going
there.
wide. We're going wide, and then we gotta.
We're
we gotta
starting
converge.
to close it in though. I feel like
we're
turning the corner. We're getting to the point where we can go from there. So everyone, have a good evening. We will see you next time on the Hangout with Adam Ryan. Will you gonna do some Alan Wake this weekend?
I couldn't do it last weekend, but I'm thinking this weekend I might be able to. So we'll do 6th episode of Alan Wake.
Good night, everyone. We'll have a good one. We'll see you.